my daughter was a baby, she could definitely see and hear things that we couldn't. I know you've said before that you believe children are more susceptible and open to paranormal experiences, and I couldn't agree more. I was excited to give birth to my first child. I was one of those women who dreamt of being a mother from the time they were born. I had dozens of baby dolls with strollers, cribs, clothes, diapers, everything, you name it. And I was constantly taking care of them. They were my favorite toys growing up. So when I got pregnant, I was over the moon with excitement. My little girl Chloe was born 7 pounds 21 inches, and she was perfect. I wasn't even afraid to take her home. I was giddy with excitement to get home and do everyday things that others found mundane. I was excited about middle of the night feedings. Never once did I complain when she screamed every 2 hours for the first few months. I was happy to get up, feed her, and rock with her. It was our bonding time, something only her and I could share. But when she was about 5 months old, she began worrying me. I had one of those video baby monitor systems so that when she was down for a nap, I could clean the house or take a shower and still be able to keep an eye on her. She was my first baby, so I was probably overcautious. One normal afternoon, I had laid Chloe down for her nap and headed downstairs to do the dishes and maybe even eat a quick snack. As I was zoning out, rinsing dishes, I glanced over to see if Chloe had fallen asleep yet. But she had rolled over onto her side and was staring intently toward her nursery door. She had a pacifier in, but spit it out and smiled towards the door. Now I know what you're thinking, and I thought it at first too. Babies do weird things when they're sleepy or about to fall asleep. But Chloe's only weird quirk was that she needed a pacifier at nap time. But just as she would fall asleep, she would spit the passy out, and she never woke up wanting it. She just needed it to help her drift off to sleep. And even though she could roll over at this point, she never did in her crib. She always slept on her back. I did try to shake it off though, figuring maybe it was a sleep regression. But later that night, my husband put her down for bed and we headed to bed as well. We had been asleep maybe an hour after we watched her drift off to sleep on the monitor. I heard giggling coming through the monitor, but 5-month-olds don't really giggle. At least she didn't yet. And this sounded like an adult giggling. I panicked. I woke my husband up, sure that someone had broken in. I watched a lot of Lifetime movies, and they all started like this. Someone slips into the nursery and grabs the baby in the middle of the night. My husband, still sleepy, reassured me he would find whoever it was if anyone was here. He told me to stay put and have my phone ready to dial 911. So I did my best not to go crashing out into the hallway with him. I was pacing the room for what seemed like an hour, waiting to hear a big blowout. But Kevin came back and said, "Honey, maybe you were dreaming. There's no one in this house, and the alarm is still set." I was creeped out, but eventually, once I knew no one was in the house and Chloe was still sleeping, I drifted back to sleep. The next morning was uneventful. We continued through our day uneventfully, and after taking a long walk, we came back to the house for her afternoon nap. Again, I laid her down, and this time I was opting to take a shower to wash the day off. As I was lathering up shampoo onto my scalp, I heard Chloe cooing through the baby monitor loudly. I smiled to myself and began rushing through the rest of the shower in case she didn't soothe herself back to sleep. I wasn't one to believe in the cry it out method. If she needed me, I responded, mid-shower or not. A few seconds later, I heard a thud and heard Chloe start screaming. I leapt out of the shower so fast that I brought a trail of water out on the floor with me. I grabbed my body towel and wrapped it around me as I ran to the nursery again. I was sure someone was in the house. I didn't set the alarm before taking my shower that day like I normally would. I got to her nursery in record time, adrenaline rushing, but there was no one there. Her changing table was flipped over, which of course would cause a thud and startle her. I swooped her up and rocked her in my arms. It took probably half an hour to calm her down. I made my husband secure the changing table to the floor after that incident, because all I could think about is what if she had been crawling around and pulled it down on her or something. We put her in the pack and play in our room that night, not knowing what happened. I wasn't comfortable putting her back in the room alone after that incident. I wish that was the last of it, but it wasn't. That night, we had finally all drifted off to sleep when I had just a mom instinct. Something was off. I slowly opened my eyes and looked around. No one was in the room. That shouldn't be, at least. Relieved, I let out a sigh, but that sigh quickly turned into a scream. We had a newer style pack and play that had the zipper on the side so you could take the baby out if you were in a tent or something, and feed him or her and easily put them back in. The pack and play was unzipping, seemingly by itself. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It had to be a spirit. There's no other explanation for the zipper unzipping. My husband woke up the second I started screaming. He was up and over to the pack and play so quickly that he nearly tripped and fell into it. We packed up a bag and drove to his parents' house, where we stayed until we could break the lease at our place and find a new one. We'd lived in that place for 2 years before Chloe came along, and neither of us had experienced anything paranormal, so I truly believe in your theory that children are easily affected. It's been a few years now, and I just thank my lucky stars she wasn't physically injured. Wow, yes, thankfully Chloe wasn't injured. It's so crazy that you were there for 2 years without incident. It just proves the theory more. I'm glad you moved out. Who knows what would have happened if you had toughed it out. Thank you so much for sharing your story. If you have a paranormal story to share, please email it to the address in the description below. Like the video if you've made it this far, and share me out if you know anyone who enjoys spooky stories. I would greatly appreciate it. And with that, see you tomorrow, friends.